Zenless Zone Zero has been out for a bit more than a week now, and I've been taking that time to progress through the game as much as I can, so I can experience as much of the game as possible before giving my overall thoughts on what I think about it and whether or not Zenless Zone Zero is actually a good game. So today, I'm finally going to be giving my thoughts on the game, as well as giving my take on whether or not you should give Zenless Zone Zero a chance if you are still on the fence about the game even after a week since it released. So before I get into this, I just want to show you all how far I've gotten in the game so far, because I feel like when it comes to reviews like this, it's good to know how much I've actually played, because like if I say like, oh, I've been playing for 20 hours, like those 20 hours could just be me, you know, staring at Nicole, which I mean, I'm sure none of us would complain about that, but that's not super constructive for like how the game plays. So in terms of me, I just hit Internet level 30 this morning. I haven't done the chapter 2 intermission yet. I do have a good amount of pulls saved, but that's not, I'll talk about pulls a bit later. And in terms of the end game, I haven't done too much of it. For Shield Defense, I've only done through stage 3. I'm waiting until I can level up some characters more, and I know I'm gonna have to build a second team at some point as well. I've pretty much been rocking the squad of Lycon, Ellen, and Sokaku, and maybe some Nicole here and there. And yeah, it's pretty much where I am right now for the game. So yeah, I have them basically like maxed out for what they need to be maxed out on. And I do have one 5-star W engine I have it on Lycon here. But yeah, overall, not like a ton of progress compared to what you might see from other content creators, but I have been playing the game enough to where I am Internet 30. So I do feel like I've gotten through enough of the game to give some more in-depth thoughts about it. Now, to go into, you know, what I think about the game overall, I do want to split this into a few different categories, and the first category I want to talk about is the main story. And I do think this is really important with this style of gacha game, especially like the Hoyoverse games and whatnot, because I feel like the story is what's really going to make us like the characters, like the world, and could be like a make or break for a good amount of players, I think. And I think that overall the story for Zenless Zone Zero was pretty good, although for one, I haven't played through chapter 3 yet, and I haven't played the chapter 2 intermission, so I'm missing out on some storylines. I believe, from what I've heard, I believe chapter 2 intermission is some stuff with like Zhu Yuan and public security, and I think chapter 3 is where you meet the Victoria housekeeping, all like the maid and the butler characters. So we'll see how that goes when I get there, but from what I've played so far, it feels very reminiscent of other gacha games like Honkai Star Rail and Wuthering Waves in terms of the like progression of the narrative. Because the beginning parts of the story, I'm not gonna lie, are a little bit boring and a little bit of a yap fest. And to me, like I know I see people complain about it, but I think it's fine because I think those early chapters and early story parts are really important for characterizing, you know, showing us the characters, introducing them, and then also introducing the world. And yeah, I just think that's super important when it comes down to it. And so because of that, I'm like, all right, you know, let me let them cook. I got through, I'm just gonna try and not spoil too much for people who might not have played yet, but through the chapter 1 quest with the cunning hairs and everything, like once we started to get towards the later parts of that, I was like, okay, you know, they're kind of getting more into the narrative because we do have the world kind of set for us. Then once I got into chapter 2 with the Bellabog characters, because we had already gotten the introduction to the world and everything like that from the prologue and like early chapter 1, then from Bellabog I felt like a shift where it was more so focused on the narrative now that the world is established and characters are established. And I did really like the fact of, you know, the whole Bellabog story, which I'm not going to spoil much of it if you haven't played it yet, but very similar to Honkai Star Rail, where the first arc was, you know, all right to set up the world, and then the Bellabog arc right afterwards was pretty good. So I am excited for the future story stuff that I haven't done yet. But the one thing that I am a little, you know, nervous about is the fact that for both Honkai Star Rail and Wuthering Waves, they had parts of their story that were like peak. They were amazing, and I'm not feeling the same like build up for Zenless Zone Zero. And of course, as I said, I haven't finished the main story for chapter 3 yet, but if Zenless Zone Zero story doesn't build up to something amazing, then I think its story is definitely going to maybe not be on the same level as like Star Rail and Wuthering Waves, but the story's still not bad. I do think that there is definitely parts to enjoy from the story for sure, and I definitely want to see what they're going to have in Chapter 3 and also the Chapter 2 interlude, and plus what they're going to have even going forward as well, because I'm sure they're going to update the story as we get more characters and everything like that. Next up, I want to talk about the combat, and this is a big one for me because I've been seeing so much discussion about how people feel about the combat and whether or not it's actually like good or whether or not it's what people were actually like expecting it to be. And I do want to give my take on this. And I do think that overall, I like the combat, not just because of the ability to play it like more casually or like the depth that it has for more hardcore players, but I like that I have the option of doing both, because I feel like on a casual kind of basis, I think the mechanics are pretty easy to get into for a like, you know, real-time action kind of game where you pretty much just need to learn like what character skills do on a basic level, if you can dodge and if you can, you know, do the occasional parry. But if you can dodge, you might not even need to parry, to be honest. If you get those core mechanics down, you should be able to get through the content in the game. Plus, if you're a casual player, you might not be, you know, caring as much about stuff like shield defense and the end game. So in modes like that, where it might be way more beneficial to learn maybe some advanced, you know, tech and advanced like combos and mechanics with your characters, that is, you know, perfect. It's perfectly fine, I think, if you're casual, to not like feel like you're rushed or forced to do those kinds of modes, because I feel like there's shouldn't really be an expectation to do endgame content if your account's not at an endgame state. So that is something I always keep in mind. But on the flip side, for the more like combat focused hardcore players who want to learn all the ins and outs about characters, I think that there's a very good amount of depth here. I know I've seen several, you know, clips on Twitter. I know a content creator, EO, he's been talking a lot about it as well with people, and there is just there's a lot of different like combos and different like special mechanics that you can learn with your characters, because they do have like special moves depending on what you do. Now, the only one that I know about that, you know, I've tried in the game is with Nicole, where normally you could just press her skill attack to do her EX skill and it, you know, shoots out the black hole. But you can actually do a secret input of doing a circular motion with whatever your movement buttons are, whether it's an analog stick on controller or WASD on keyboard. And doing that while holding down the skill, she'll have a secret animation, which I believe changes the way that it fires the shot, which could have some very interesting implications for combat. Again, I'm not going to act like I'm an expert on it because I haven't looked into it too much. I've kind of just been like enjoying the game and not feeling like I have to go into those like more advanced kind of things, but at the same time I do really appreciate them being there, because if I do want to learn more and I do want to do some cooler stuff, I do have the option as well. Plus, with Zenless Zone Zero having like the free training kind of thing where you can just basically lab any like combos or any like, you know, abilities with your characters, I think that's super cool as well. And the one big negative about the combat, though, with all of the possible depth with combos and everything like that, because I do think that the depth is really great, but I think if you are a player that's looking more for a really cool combat experience, the one thing you're not going to like about Zenless, and I've seen a lot of people talk about it, are the enemies. A lot of the enemies in the game, it's not all of them, some of the enemies actually do they do attack a decent amount, but a lot of the enemies don't attack that much. And for that, like, sure, you're gonna be able to do all your combos and stuff, but then you lose the difficulty in that case, because if you know all these super amazing combos, you can kind of just do them endlessly and not have to worry about any kind of like difficulty. So I do think if that's something that you're not gonna like, Zenless Zone Zero's combat might not be the ideal game for you, and in that case I might recommend a game like Wuthering Waves. But Zenless still has a level of, you know, style and flashiness that it could still be really fun, even if the enemies are just, you know, kind of being sponges half the time. But hopefully they fix it. Like, that issue is something that's definitely fixable. So we'll see what Hoyo does with that. But otherwise, I do really like the combat overall. And I think as long as they continue to you know, release characters that can work on a casual level, but have a ton of reward for people who want to chase that extra depth with them, I think that Zenless is going to be in a pretty good spot moving forward. Then I want to talk about the elephant in the room next, which I did want to actually put this with the story, but I guess I'll put it in its own section here. But it's the TVs, because this is the biggest thing that people have told Hoyoverse that they don't want it ever since the beta, or they want much less of it, which now that I've played the TVs, I agree to an extent, because I think the TVs in the story a lot of the time made me kind of lose the immersion, because like sure they try to add things like, oh, you know, the train is on the TVs and you gotta maneuver around the train, but it just feels like something that's not necessary, especially when you have this really cool like comic book dialogue style that you're using for for parts of the story. So I feel like giving us information through there and then letting us just jump into combat would be a much better and much more immersive experience for us. And even if there is like a little bit of yapping like during the combat, I still don't think it'd be as bad as in TVs, because it just takes up time for pretty much no reason in the main story. But the reason I said I only agree with removing or like lessening the TVs to an extent is because I really do like the TVs for Hollow Zero only. And because I feel like with that being like the roguelike kind of mode, it's like you use the TVs to advance, go whatever path, go whatever buffs, and then you go into combat at the end of the board you're on. And I do think that's a pretty good section for that. And yeah, so I think overall, like the TVs, they definitely do suck in the story, but if you are able to, get them to just be in Hollow Zero, I think that'll probably just be a better experience overall. Now, will they go back and retroactively remove them from the story? I don't think so for the earlier chapters, but I think for the future, if they minimize the amount of TVs, I think this is just going to be a better experience overall. So now that we talked about the TVs, now I want to talk about account progression, how that's felt for me, because I do think that's important, especially for people who want to build up their accounts and be able to clear content. The account progression in Zenless, at least to me, it felt kind of similar to the other Hoyoverse titles, where you're pretty much just like working on your main team, and then once you work on them, you pretty much gotta wait till you get your next level cap increase so you can get them max leveled again, get the weapons max leveled. I did unlock the like relic equivalent. I believe they sell the disk drives in like the mid to late Internet levels, so I can access those as well. I don't have like I don't have S rank ones yet, so I'm not like investing too much in my disk drives. But once I get the S ranks, I'll probably start to actually like try to get some builds going. But I do think that it's a good idea, because in these like earlier levels, and something that happened with me is that I got my I got my team pretty much all set up with like their levels, their W engines, getting max level. I got their skills to pretty good levels as well, around like Internet, like I would say 26 or 27, because I did swap in Sokaku a bit later, so I had to build her up completely. But after that, I think that you can start investing in other characters you want to use for a second team, because you are going to need 2 teams for Shiyu Defense. You might need 2 teams for Hollow Zero as well. I haven't gotten that far in it though, but they do have the extra like slots for it. So getting other characters built up is definitely going to be good. I haven't personally decided on my second team, so I did kind of use my resources inefficiently in that kind of sense. But I do really want to, push home the notion that if you can start getting other characters built up, I mean, it really doesn't matter, right? Like, don't be pressured to like build one character over the other. But I think as long as you're thinking about like, oh, I need more than one team, or I want to use more than one team, I can use this time now between my current Internet level and the next level cap increase to get a second team going. Because that way it's going to make later on, when you can get like max level and stuff, and when you actually need the second team, it's going to make your life a lot easier. But yeah, we'll see how things go as I progress more and get to like the higher Internet levels and the higher character levels. But I do think it's a pretty solid system for where I am right now. And for the last category I want to talk about, which this one is definitely going to be, or at least hopefully going to be shorter than the other one, is the Gacha system. Because the Gacha system is where Hoyoverse makes their money, and it's what all of us Gacha players love so much. And for those of you who play Honkai Star Rail, the Gacha system is mostly identical, which is very nice. The limited character banner is you get a 5-star at 90 pulls. and it has the same 50-50 system. And then for the W engine banner, which is the equivalent of a light cone banner for Star Rail, it's 75-25 chance for a 5-star, and then it is, or S rank in this case, and it's at 80 pulls. But there are a couple changes that I want to go over that were actually really nice for Zenless Zone Zero that I really like. The first one, which I'm actually going to show in game too, because this one was really just a small quality of life thing, but I really did like it. When you go to the summon screen here, it shows you your pity counts. So it'll tell you your A rank or higher guaranteed in however many searches, and then your S rank guarantee in however many pulls. And this is really cool because, like, if I go here, and also it shows you your progress to the 300 selectable, because you do have a selectable 5-star in this game as well. And it updates as you pull, right? So yeah, like right now I'm 7 away from a guaranteed A rank, and then I'm 46 away from an S rank guarantee. Obviously I can get it before that, but this is really nice because before you would have to go into, like in Star Rail, you'd have to go into your history, you'd have to scroll, and it'd be super annoying. But seeing it here is just a really nice quality of life. So that's one. But then secondly, we do also have the Bangboos as well, which their currency is completely separate from the like polychromes and the normal pulling currency. You get these from other parts of the game. And these are really nice because you can always select the S rank you want to get. Like I only summoned for the Butler Bangboo, so I haven't changed this yet, but I can go here and I can choose whichever one I want from the 5-stars, which is really nice because these are like your little like assists kind of things for battle, and they are very helpful. But yeah, pretty much besides that, everything here is pretty similar. So I do think the gacha system is pretty good. Plus they've been giving out a solid amount of pulls. I did get lucky with Ellen, so I am kind of just saving up pulls, and I think I'm about like 60 or 70 pulls saved up right now for well, limited plus my polychrome. So yeah, we'll see what I end up pulling for, but overall, pretty solid gacha system here, which I am very happy about. So, with all that yapping done for me, now let me answer the question of what are my overall thoughts for Zenless Zone Zero. Now, I think it is a good game that also has plenty of room for improvement, like how I mentioned with the TVs, with parts of the combat, just to make it an overall better experience. And despite my high hopes for Zenless Zone Zero, I don't think it's going to become Hoya vs. Best Game. It's not going to have the same kind of success, in my opinion, as Honkai Star Rail or the early days of Genshin. I think it's going to be a nice kind of like side game for some people. Like some people may main it until there's not enough content, but at the end of the day, gacha games, I feel like are pushing all towards the point of these aren't games that we're playing for hours a day. These are games that we're logging in for a bit when there's content, getting the content done, and then going to the next one or going to do something else. And I think Zenless Zone Zero is going to fit the bill for that pretty well, because despite me feeling like in terms of internet level, I'm behind other content creators, even ones that are like fully free to play like me. At the same time, I don't feel like rushed to level up and whatnot, because I still feel like I can think of content to make, I can still enjoy the game. So I'm not really too worried about that. And also because I'm playing Star Rail and Wuthering Waves as well, I can split my time a bit better between the three of them if I'm not so focused in on playing for hours for each game. And I do think that if I had to rate the game on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably going to give it a 7 for now. I do think it's enjoyable. You do have to go through a bit of the typical early gacha game like yapping kind of story at first, but then it becomes pretty chill overall. And I do think that with some improvements, it can definitely go up to like 7.5 and 8, but at least for me, I don't think it'll hit quite the same heights as like Honkai Star Rail, but at the same time, that is perfectly okay. Not every game has to be like a super mega insane hit for it to be a good game. But those are my thoughts for Zenless Zone Zero. If you guys enjoyed this kind of video from me and want to see more content, definitely be sure to hit that subscribe button. And let me know in the comments down below what you all think of Zenless Zone Zero so far if you've been playing it, or if this video made you want to give it a chance or another chance. But with that, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.